Welcome, everybody, to Three Things I've Learned with me, Susan Dolci, where we share the stories that shift our souls. This is a show where we share true breakthrough stories from some really inspiring people. And it's my hope that you gain a new perspective from their personal experiences, because it's important to me that you know that you are not alone. And so many of us experience the same heartbreaks and the same setbacks. And we all have three things we've learned about love and about life. And when we share our stories, we build connection, and connection dissolves our feelings of loneliness and isolation. And that's why today's topic is so important to me. Today, we're talking about perfectionism to I'm perfect. And I consider myself a recovering perfectionist. I like to use recovering, like I'm always working on it. And that story is part of my limiting belief system. My dad, and I love him, he was a great guy. He was very affectionate, and he really was a great guy. But the one thing he was really bad about was praise. He was just always really light on the praise. And he would always focus on the thing you got wrong, not all the stuff that you tried to do right. It was always that one bad grade or whatever. It was always the thing you did wrong. And the truth is, that wasn't his fault. That's how he was raised. I'm sure he thought he was just being a really good dad by encouraging me to see where I needed to work harder. But what it did was make me believe that if I just did everything perfectly, then he would finally tell me I did a good job. And it took years, pretty much until I was around 40, that I was finally able to dump that belief system and let go of the shoulds, right? Those dreaded shoulds. My guest today spent 36 years caught in a limiting belief system that had her imprisoned in ideals she could never reach, and now she dedicates her life to helping women realize that their imperfections are what make them perfect. Shannon Rafalowski is a transformation leader dedicated to helping women recovering from addiction find truth, freedom, and connection by aligning mental and physical self-care so they can own their life. She's a certified professional life coach and a certified swim coach. She is the founder of OYL, Own Your Life, and is launching a line of exercise products encouraging others to take care of their bodies and their souls. Everybody, let's welcome Shannon to the show. Hi, Shannon.
Hi. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Well, again, I every time I have a guest, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know you have like an amazing story. And I do know your amazing story, but can we share that? Let's share that story with our audience.
Yeah. I feel like I have like 10 amazing stories.
Yeah, right. Really. So tell me about tell me the story. Tell me about the 30s, waking up sort of at 36 and like what you were going through all those years and how you broke free from all of that.
Gosh, it really was more of waking up around like when I was, I'd say 45, more than 36. But 36, I had an eating disorder. I was bulimic from the time that I was 12 years old, if not longer. And I had that disease or that addiction, I would say. I had that addiction for 36 years of my life, and I always knew that there was more wrapped. It was never about the food. Like, I always knew there was more wrapped up in that, and I just didn't know how to break free from it. I went to therapy, I did hypnotism, I did all different kinds of things. But when I was around, I'd say 45, that's when there was just a series of events that I started to become aware, like really pay attention. And that addiction just didn't serve me anymore. That addiction was a symptom of a much deeper underlying cause. It was a limiting belief system that I was holding on to my entire life. And it was my responsibility. It wasn't anybody else's. It was my own ideals that were taken from lots of other limiting beliefs and gremlins. And it was us all piling on top of each other. And the symptom that I had where I was hiding and shaming myself and hiding behind walls was my addiction. So I knew that I had to break free from it. I had a choice to that live or die. Like I was dying a very, very slow death. And if I did not start paying attention and become aware of really what was going on and face it, then I would not be here today. So that's in a nutshell, an overall piece.
Can you share, because I know we've talked about it before, and I know I still sort of struggle with this, and I have to get in my head and say, stop. Just, it, for me, it's social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I can, and especially when I first got involved in social media, which I was really resistant to it. And one of my friends, it was after I'd moved to Cincinnati, and she was like, you got to get on Facebook so we can keep in touch. And I was like, okay. And then it's like, wow, everybody's lives look so awesome. Like, look at these great vacations and look at their house, and their kids always look so happy. And I'm going to share I had this one aha moment after all of that. I was watching a mom. We were at the pool, our community pool, and this mom wanted to take a Facebook photo or an Instagram photo or whatever. And so she got all of the kids like posed in the pool. And the kids didn't want to be posed in the pool. The kids just wanted to play, right? And then she's like, if you pose right in the pool, I'll give you a popsicle or whatever. And so the kids are all, and finally she gets her perfect Instagram photo or whatever. And then the kids go about doing it. And she looks and she's like, oh no, it's not good. We got to redo it. And so it's that kind of stuff, like trying to, like, what we see in the world that's just everybody else with their own story and their on the stuff that they're kind of putting that mask on, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is the biggest. So that was a lot. That was my gremlin. Like there, you got the overall Mac Daddy gremlin. And if people don't know what a gremlin is like if you've ever seen the movie Gremlins, it's that overall like the gremlin is it's that little furry animal that if you drop a piece of water on it or a drop of water on it, it just starts to multiply. So the overall gremlin is that I'm not good enough. Okay, that's the Mac Daddy. And but underlying that, like what are all those other gremlins there? So one of my gremlins is imposter syndrome, or was. It's not anymore, but it was imposter syndrome. So it's that piece of wearing a mask. Like everybody, like Shannon looks happy, like Shannon looks fit and happy and has this great life. And the pieces that I was hiding was that I was like rotting away on the inside, right? And it's not just from everyone else. I was hiding from myself. Like I did not even know who I was anymore. So I think that story that you just told about the pictures and getting everybody to pose and everyone look perfect, like that's a perfect example of like what I should, like you even said it in your intro, what I should be doing. And these are the perfect way, this is the way to look perfect. When really, like, real life is that human to human connection. Like, you look at those perfect pictures and you start to compare each other, but like, I don't know who made the perfect rules, right? Like, who made the perfect rules, right?
Yeah,
like, seriously, right. Like, what is that? What is that? Because we have these ideals that have been placed in our head and I don't even know how, but what are they? Because really, like, when do you feel a connection? Like, I feel a connection when I have that human to human experience. And so, but you're right. Like, we put these masks on and we start to compare ourselves to other people. And whether it's within social media, or just through athleticism, through somebody's house, the house we live in, or whatever it is. But so we're creating these ideals that aren't a true representation of what our God given souls are. So it's trying to figure out to that foundation, like becoming and figuring out if you've forgotten, like, who the heck are you? And if you're leaning on some sort of an addiction, like you said, yours is social media, even could have been an addiction. And if you're leaning on it, like, what's the underlying cause of that symptom? too. That's
Yeah.
formed who you are.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I love that. Who made up the perfect rules? And I think, like, I'd like to, we're going to take a break in a bit, but when we come back, I'd like to, if you don't mind, expand a little bit on that who made up the perfect rules. Because, like, when I was taught, telling the story about my dad, um, for my, apparently, like, after how, I don't know, I was in college when I was like, I got to get these grades for me, right? But the perfect rules for me were, who was I making happy by achieving that perfection. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Three Things I've Learned, and we'll be right back. We're back on. This is Three Things I've Learned with Susan Dolci, and my guest today is Shannon Rafalowski, and we're talking about how to let go of perfectionism. And we're going to talk about who makes the perfect rules in a minute, but I want to ask Shannon if you could please share with the listeners how they can find you and what's your, like, what's the name of your website and all that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the name of my website is OYL Coaching, all lowercase, OYLcoaching.com. And my Instagram handle is Shannon Rafalowski. That's simple. And then you can find me on Facebook under OYL Own Your Life or OYL Culture, or you can even personal message me at Shannon Ashby Rafalowski. So lots of different ways that you can find me.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. I hope people take advantage of that too. Well,
I hope.
we've got a special offer. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But so before the break, we were talking about, excuse me, like who makes the perfectionist rules and or who makes the perfect rules. And as I was saying, like, I know that I was just trying to live up to an ideal that my dad gave me.
Mhm.
What was that like for you? Like who made up your perfect rules, and how did you break free from those?
You know what? I don't even know if there was anyone that made the perfect rules. It was just looking around in society. And I will tell you this story that I don't even know if I've ever shared it with anyone, but it keeps popping up for me all the way back to the time that I was 5 years old. Okay.
Mm,
This was something that when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, like I have this crazy memory that thinks back like way back. Okay. And I'm a deep thinker but likes to have a lot of fun. But but I but I think back to kindergarten, and I was in this classroom, and my teacher's name was Mrs. Baxter, and I loved her, and I wanted to please her. And I think that goes into it too. Like I wanted to please everyone that I looked up to in my life that I admired. And the thing with me is I love everybody. So I'm very much like a level 6 intuition. I love everyone. I've got a big heart. So I want to please everybody. So in kindergarten, this teacher, they put us in reading groups and they put me in an advanced reading group.
mhm,
And then the next day I went in and they took me out. And I will tell you, I thought it's because I was not smart enough. So
mhm,
there's a limiting belief right there. And so I thought that it probably simply was because they just didn't have enough room in the group, right? I mean, but I went on to think like I wasn't smart enough. It's so
mhm,
silly. But I think it's moments like that of looking at like I want to be like that person that's in that advanced group. And if I'm not, then I'm not good enough. I'm not as good. And
mhm,
I remember I had a boyfriend that is brilliant. Oh, he's the book smart, like smartest person that I know in that realm. And he said to me, I said, I'm just not very smart. It goes back all the way to that 5 year old, right?
mhm,
And even though I had done great and had great grades and everything, but it took him, it was like an aha moment where he said, you know what? He said, but you're smart in ways that I could never paint a picture like you do. Like we all have our gifts and
mhm,
talents, and I think it's discovering that. But when I look back to like my family, I don't think anyone in my direct family put that pressure on me. It was me looking at everyone else's example. Okay,
mhm.
my dad has owned multiple businesses, he's highly successful, and I want to be like that. My mom is kind and generous and has a beautiful heart, and I want to be like her. And my sisters are amazing and I want to be like them and I just don't want to let anybody down.
Mhm.
So I wanted to I put myself at like the highest standards. And I did have a grandmother that was very much like very vain, beautiful, wise woman. But each time she said something, it felt like it was just chipping away at me and it wasn't good enough. And I think that's where the weight at the time, that's where
Mm.
like the weight piece came in because I was a stocky child and I just grew really fast. And I was just a bigger, stocky kid as an athlete. And I remember going to McDonald's and she'd let everybody else have the shake and not me. And I think that's where I picked up with what my coping mode was, turned out to be something that was that where it was like a food thing.
Mhm.
So when we look back and you can really look at the limiting beliefs and look back at all the pieces and kind of unravel everything, it definitely makes sense. But the key is getting to the P. When you look at the word, you look at perfect,
Mm.
and then it's getting to perfect and really accepting imperfect. But let's take that word apart, okay? Let's take imperfect apart. And when you think in your mind about imperfect, what is it? It's I'm perfect.
Mhm.
I'm perfect, imperfect. So it's when you can really, really accept that it's human to human, that you're perfect just the way you are. But it's getting to that place of knowing that as human beings, the amount of space that you take up on this earth isn't any more valuable or less valuable than the amount of space that I take up on this earth. You're a beautiful human being. I'm a beautiful human being. We all have gifts, but it can be a process to get to that place.
Well, and that was gonna be my next question. When you work with clients and just even your own journey, what did you do? Like, what were some of the steps that you took to get that worthiness and that self-acceptance and that self-love and self-care?
Well, a lot of it is values work. And when I started working, first of all, there's like looking at just a simple wheel of life, right? And evaluating where you are on a scale of 1 to 10 in different areas of your life and seeing what's lacking. And if your life doesn't look like a circle and it looks like a star, then you know that there's something there to work on that's out of balance, right? And it's tough to get that balance. It's work, it's discipline. Self care is discipline. It is
Mhm.
discipline. So that's one thing. Another thing that I never did was values work. And what values work means is really uncovering and really identifying your top. I say three is good, but there's values that fall under values, what your top 3 to 5 values are, but really three, and knowing that they're actually your values and they're
Mhm.
not someone else's values. Because if you would have asked me what's important to you in your life, I could have said, like, let's say I say, like, peace. Peace is one of my values. Well, okay, is it is that your value or is that a value that you're living by according to someone else? Like
Mhm.
maybe that's my parents' value.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I just want to keep the peace. Well, do you? Or are you doing that because someone
Yeah.
else
Mhm.
told you should do that, right? So uncovering values and knowing if they align with who you are. And if there's a value, if you're like something doesn't feel right and you're not and following, if you're following and listening to your gut and your heart and something doesn't feel right to you, then your values are probably not aligned. Like if some that is a really good way to discover what your values are is when something feels yucky to you
Mhm.
or really good. You can look at it and go, what's going on here? Oh, like I feel freedom. My values are written even in my brand statement and in my mission statement is truth, freedom, and connection. And when those values are violated for me, and it feels yucky. It
Mhm.
doesn't work for me. And if I'm around someone, that's not my tribe. That if they're going to not be matched up with they don't have to have the same values, but if they're violating my values, then it's not a good fit, right?
Mhm.
So values work is so important.
I'm
So
I'm curious. I'm curious about because what came to mind when you said peace, I was like, does she mean like personal peace or world peace or like? And then you said, keeping the peace, because like you said, there's my idea of what it means to embody peace. And then there's something that, like when I think about my family, my immediate family, my children and my husband, I think about keeping the peace, which are two completely different things. So
Yeah.
when you said, I was like, wow, what's my
Yeah.
values? Peace? Like, because there's so many layers to it. And that's what you're trying to say.
So many, and there's a whole process I go through that is to uncover, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of values, so it can be incredibly overwhelming. So there's a whole process I go through to actually get to the values, and knowing that you're being the truth piece is
Mhm.
knowing that you're being authentic to who you are, and you're not picking your values according to other people. But there's a whole process of like, what do you like, what do you know to do, what do you enjoy, there's all of that. So that's like gosh, there's so much, but that's a big piece of it, is finding your values, and then also making sure that you're aligning with who you show up as, with your intimate relationships, your social relationships, and your stranger relationships. Are you showing up as the same person in each scenario? Because if you're not, then you're not being true to yourself. That's
Wow.
huge too.
And when I can think of so many people, like it took me a long time, especially in the last community we were living in, because I really felt like who I was, like when I went outside and I had to engage with certain people, I had to be a completely different person. And I think that was one of my struggles, and I'm still trying to get over that. Um, that, that it, it totally violated my soul.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a whole, yeah, yeah, it does. I'm sorry, I was
No,
interrupting
it's
you,
okay.
but
No, it's
it's
okay.
a whole big difference between, there is a huge, massive difference between fitting in and belonging.
Mhm. Yeah.
Huge.
Oh, yeah. I love that. That's absolutely true. There's a huge
Mhm,
difference between fitting in and belonging,
mhm,
and
mhm.
feeling, yeah, and feeling like, I mean, that feeling of actually of belonging to a community is so much better than fitting in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that goes to the values. Like your values are aligning; they're not being triggered, and so yeah, that's also a piece of putting on the mask. Is
Mhm.
the fitting in, is like you put on this mask, and when you actually belong, like you just shredded all the layers, and just you are who you are, and it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. We're going to take this opportunity to take another break. And I'm speaking with Shannon Rafalowski today. She's a life coach. And when we come back, we started this show. Shannon shared about an eating disorder that she had since the age of 12 until she was about 36 years old. And I think it's really, really important that we talk about how eating disorders have nothing to do with food. So when we come back, we're gonna cover that topic. You're listening to Three Things I've Learned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Today I am chatting with Shannon Rafalowski, and we're talking about perfect to I'm perfect. And Shannon has a great offer. She is offering our listeners a 30-minute free coaching session. And can you tell us how people can sign up to do that with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have many, many ways you can get in touch with me. So you can, I failed to mention my email before, but you can call me, or my website is oyl.coaching.com, and on there's a contact area to send me an email, or just directly email me at oyl Shannon at oyl culture. So it's a little bit different.
Culture,
OYLculture.com.
Culture, culture.
Culture. OYLculture is a way that you can email me, or you can personal message me on Facebook under Shannon Ashby Rafalowski, or on my Own Your Life page.
Great. I hope y'all take advantage of that because
Yeah.
that's a great offer. So before the break, we are talking about I I we were talking about eating disorders, and I was anorexic from it started, I think, when I was a sophomore in high school. I was very, very sick. I was hospitalized
Mm,
and lost a lot of weight in the hospital. Like it was just, I was just really sick. And when I went back to school, everybody's like, oh my God, you look so good. How much weight did you lose? And I
Oh,
was like, I didn't know I had to lose weight. I didn't. And so then I was like, okay, there was the image thing. And then there was just the whole like, it probably manifested itself earlier when I was 14, when
mm,
like my family, my brothers and my cousins are much older than me, and they all kind of got married and moved away at the same time, which is normal. I mean, they were adults, right? But when you're like 13, 14 years old, you're like, why are you leaving me?
mhm.
So for me, it was about control. It was the one thing I could have control over. And so that's where like eating disorders are not about food usually.
No. No, they're not about food. They're not at all about food. There's such a huge misconception. And there are people that try to help others by but by um, implementing new, just nutritional plans. Or I've had people tell me that someone has told them to watch calories. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, no, because it's not about the food. It is never about the food. It is about this. So eating disorders are the symptom, just as if any addiction, okay? Like alcoholism is to drink, that is the symptom. There is an underlying cause that is caused that. Like what you just
Mhm.
said, you think is maybe manifested. What manifested was that all of your family moved away at the same time. And then you also said there's the body image piece. So that's the perfectionist piece, okay? Because it's never just one thing, but it's not about the food. It's
Mhm.
not about the food. So it's figuring out what it is that triggered you at the time to use that coping mechanism. And for you, you said you think it was about control. And for like in some instances, for me, I look at it and I'm like, gosh, I hear that, but I can't tell you anything that ever made me, I was bulimic, okay? And I can't tell you anything that ever made me feel in control with an eating disorder because I was frantically eating anything that was around. I was hiding, it was a secret. And here's what was happening. I was taking on emotions and I was trying to be a perfectionist and to please everybody, and I didn't want to let anybody down. I also didn't express who I am. So that goes into the piece that we were talking about being the truth and not having a mask on and being able to truly deliver myself, that's my soul, and my gifts. Because without being in that place, what I was doing is I was hiding myself. I was hiding everything about me other than the achievements I had. Because I'll tell you, Susan, like I accomplished all the things I wanted to do. I had great grades. I was president of my class. I had these massive accolades. I've lived all over the world. I rode my bicycle from Oregon to Virginia. I mean, all these things.
What?
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Wow.
little
Okay.
secret about me, but a lot of people
Didn't know
don't
that.
know, you know? And I tell all that stuff too. Like, I even hide my achievements. I hid my achievements because I just never felt like I was worthy, right? Like, I did all these great things, but there was still something missing. So, what I turned to was I would consume all of my emotions. I was eating my emotions and I was taking in all these feelings. Now, people, we've got feelings because to feel. Feelings are for feeling. But I had all this stuff coming in that I didn't want to feel, just like you did, Susan, when your family moved away and it hurt so bad. It hurt so bad that you didn't want to face it. And I feel like with addiction, with people that turn to drugs or alcohol or shopping or social media or whatever it is, you do it to numb out, right?
Mhm.
You do it
Yep.
to numb out so you don't have to face what's going on and you don't have to have these really hard feelings. And I feel like right now, in the middle of a pandemic and with COVID and people have been isolated, I really worry for people that have had addictions or that are picking up addictions because they're isolated, because
Mhm.
it's taking on and taking in and eat. Like for me, it's eating emotions, or it was, I mean, there was a period of time where I started drinking too, and I'm like, oh gosh, heck no, like this is bad. This is bad. So but I was aware of it, right? So it wasn't a habit yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the piece for me with the purging was like this massive scream. I just wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, but I didn't allow myself to do
Mm-hmm.
it. So I wasn't being heard. And so my purging was like me just like this massive roar of just letting it all out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was in private and it was secret and it was hiding. So that goes to the piece of addictions. This is why this is not about food, okay? And drinking is not about the drink,
Right.
okay? And the social media and the shopping is not about the shopping. It's not about the cute outfit, and it's or any cutting. Cutting is a lot like bulimia, okay? Cutting is it's you're cutting and then letting out your emotions with
Mm-hmm.
that release. It's a release. So this is the piece that is so important. This is why this pandemic breaks my heart so much, is because the antidote of addiction is connection. And if you don't have connection with other human beings and you don't aren't able to be 100% yourself and you're hiding and you have a facade on and you have this perfect facade but it's not really who you are, it's who you think you want to other people to portray you as, how are you going to develop real true connections if you're living somebody else's values? How are you going to develop real true connections? Because the antidote of addiction is connection. There's this guy, I cannot remember his name. I wish I could, but he did a study on he goes around and he talks about this. He does TED talks about it, he does speaking about it. The anecdote of addiction being connection. You can take two mice or rats or whatever and put them in a cage, and you can have them. I don't know. You may have heard of this,
It
but
was,
you put them
yes,
in
I was like, when you were talking
right.
about connection, I was just going to say, hey, it's like that rat thing with the heroin.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
yeah, you take two and you put a bottle of heroin and a bottle of water, and you don't have anything else in there. It might be just one rat. I can't remember. But anyway, without any connection, that rat
Yeah.
goes to heroin every time.
Right.
And the next one, they put a wheel in and entertainment and connection with like other rats or rats. And the rat does not go to the heroin. The rat goes to water. It's instinct and intuition, right? Of like where they should be. So it's just really, really, it's just fascinating. So does that explain my,
Oh,
why
absolutely. Absolutely.
food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the programs I know that are out there battling sugar addictions or food addictions, that's what they try to do is they try to give you a community where you can build connection and you have support. And right now, like in this time, and this, when it's a pandemic and all we've got is like Zoom and phone call and FaceTime or whatever, it's just 10 times harder because you're trying to do it without somebody being able to give you a hug or hold your hand or like, sit there while you cry. And so yeah, this is some definitely trying times
It's
for if you're
so
suffering from that already.
yeah, it's so important. And so I think that's why it's so important to develop those tools and those skills so that when you get into that place that you can if you get a trigger or something, you know how to pull yourself out of, which is where the coaching piece is so teaches you all of that. So it's just incredibly powerful.
We're going to take another break. I'm speaking today with Shannon Rafalowski. We're talking about ditching perfectionism, embracing our imperfectionism. Boy, I'm getting tongue tied today. And we just have a lot more to talk about. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Shannon Rafalowski. And we were talking about connection and how connection is so important with addiction, and connection is just important, period. But one of the things that we had chatted about before is the importance of self-care, and that kind of came up a little bit in our talk. And one of the things I always, being a life coach, I talk about self-care all the time. My mentor, Veronica, she is like her motto is radical self-care. And I know a lot of women who think, and I'm just going to talk to the women right now, who think that self-care is like, oh, I'm going to give myself a facial, or, a manicure or a pedicure, or take a bath or whatever. And yes, I'm not saying that's not self-care, but when we look at, there's also spiritual self-care. And so there's, like in my intro with you, and it's like you work with women on their physical self-care and their spiritual self-care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking in the last little segment about how eating disorders aren't about food. Well, we didn't really address the body image piece because they're really not about body image either, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, of
Right.
course, like, I am an avid swimmer. I am an avid in fitness. Have always taken very good care of my body, which sounds really strange with having an eating disorder for 36 years, which no one really talks about, right? That's all around shame. It was hidden. People are like, what do you mean you have an eating disorder? You're a swimmer, like a really amazing swimmer. And I'm just like, because it's not about the body image either.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, of course, I wanted to look nice and fit in nice things, but the self care is a piece of that. Okay. So self care is like, I knew that the self care piece is a bit around, um, it's not about just going and making yourself feel better by getting your eyelashes done or your nails done or a massage, or yes, that's a piece of pampering, but self-care takes a lot of discipline. Okay, it takes a lot of discipline. Self-care is really more about having intentional habits so that you can live your life authentically every single day for the life that fits you the best. So it's about, you know, um, having a vision and being able to step forth in that vision. And it's about getting enough sleep. It's about waking up at a good time. It's about taking care of your body and not polluting your body. That's a piece of discipline. It's about choosing a podcast over scrolling through social media, looking at pictures where people are comparing each other. Self care is about a lot of choices, and also being able to take responsibility for your own actions, meaning take responsibility for your choices, because
Mm-hmm.
we all get a choice. Okay, we all get a
Absolutely.
choice. So the self care piece for is and exercise is a big piece of it. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying with it can seem like it's very hypocritical where I'm talking about exercise, but I was bulimic, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it's not at all. I used to look at exercise as it was kind of a form of meditation for me. It was a place where I felt like it was the one place because I lost my soul. Like I didn't know who I was. So it was the one place that I loved it so much. It's the one place that in any kind of exercise, like it's the one place that was mine. Like I could be myself. I felt free, which is another one of my values is
Mm-hmm.
freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt completely free, like I could be myself when I'm exercising. But I was I wasn't doing it from the spiritual side. The spiritual side was missing in my life. And so if we didn't have a body, then you can't present your gifts to people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. Yep.
because because you don't have a body, like you're dead if you don't
Right.
take care of your body, right?
Right.
So now one of my big things that I say, and you said it in the intro, is for me personally, like, and what I teach other people, I teach you to take care of your body, to take care of your soul, so that once you can all these gifts that you've discovered and authentically knowing who you are, then you can deliver them to the world. And that's when you know your purpose. You can use your purpose, you can use your gifts to deliver them to the world. And it all comes down to healthy habits and discipline. So for instance, I wake up at 4:45 most days. Okay, I wake up. I immediately I know it's so early, but I have 3 kids,
I know,
you know, like,
I know you have 3 kids too, so I know,
and
but still,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So I get up at 4:45 and I immediately put my AirPods in and I make sure and I listen to some sort of positive affirmation while I'm making coffee. And I make sure that the volume point, here's a tip for everyone. If you have something where like a commercial comes on first, turn the volume down first because the first thing that we hear in the morning or the first words that we hear, it's like hearing a song. It's you know how it can
Mm,
stick in your mind all day long. And a lot of the ads on YouTube will be something like, "So, do you have a problem going to the bathroom?" And like it's just stuck in my head all day long.
I
So
think, "Oh god, oh, no, you're right, no, I don't. No, I'm fine.
I'm
No,
like,
oh,
no, like get it out of my like erase it, get it out of my head. That is not what I wanted to listen to all day. So sometimes I listen to a prayer, sometimes I listen to a law of attraction thing. I listen to Abraham Hicks, or usually about 10
mhm,
minutes, or something just as I'm moving around, it's positive. And
mhm,
then I read something for about 20 minutes that is uplifting, or something that means something to me. So
mhm,
for some people, it is scripture. For others, it's a motivational book or whatever, right? And then I go to exercise. I
mhm.
go to exercise, and I've got this amazing start of the day. So if nothing else feels like it goes right throughout the day, I have that morning routine that is amazing. And I definitely motivate. I meditate. I meditate, and that is a tough practice, but there's certain things that we do automatically that only is a gift from the universe, right? Knowing that there's
Mhm.
something in the world bigger than us. So breathing, we just naturally do it. So it all goes into that self-care piece, which can seem a little crazy to some people that maybe haven't heard it that way. But self-care is not selfish, by the way. Like self-care is not selfish.
It is definitely a requirement. And it sounds like the other thing, the other piece, um, that and it's not that you haven't said it, but for me, it's intention. Like, what is my intention for that day? And if I start my day with the intention of I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to take care of my soul, and then I can go into the day, knowing that I have fed those parts of me, before I have to address anybody else. And it's true, what you consume first. Marie Forleo, one of my favorites, she always says, she's like, create before you consume, because the first that whatever we're taking in at the very beginning, it's gonna mess up our day, or it's gonna make our day great. So
Yeah, absolutely. And this actually goes to something that is so important is by taking care of yourself, you're taking care of other people. You are taking care of other people when you take care of yourself, because if you have people around you that love you and they're watching you, you are the example. You
right.
are the example that is teaching people to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So that is so important. And so if you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do this because I have to take care of my children or whatever, they're watching you
Yeah.
and they're picking up on those same self-care habits that you are putting and instilling in your life. Trust me. Trust me. It is so important to take care of yourself.
Shannon, thank you. Thank you so much for at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for today. This has been great. I would normally ask you, what are your 3 things? But we have chatted ourselves to the end of the show. So thanks for listening, everyone. You've been listening to 3 Things I've Learned. I'm Susan Dolci. For more information on how you can mentor with me, you can go to my website. It's susandolci.com. I always like to wrap up with this. We all have a story to tell. We can live in the story, or we can transform the story. It's your choice. Like, that's what we were talking about. We all have choices every single day. So you can change your story. You can change our world. #Storyfield. Thanks for listening, everybody.